Good idea.
So, welcome. I was just looking for a clip of you on Oprah, and I found a couple of things that kind of showed you. So
Uh-huh.
I wanted to look
Well,
backward.
we have a whole our PR, we have a PR clip, of us being on various shows, and it's a progression of different hairstyles too. You'll see through the particularly through the 90s.
What was your favorite hairstyle?
Oh gosh. Well, I think my favorite is what I have now, but back then, because my hair suddenly turned curly
Oh,
after,
what?
after decades of being so. But I would say my asymmetrical, because that was more, it's a little edgier,
I like
it
edgy.
didn't have the helmet, that was considered fashionable.
Well, so the folks that are here, we include two people from Australia got up at 3 a.m. So
Wow.
Jen and Grant, you might wave. Anyway, but then the rest of us are, I think, all in the US. But anyway, to welcome everybody so that we can chat with my beloved mentor and friend, Katie Hendricks. The focus of our reading group for the first year practitioners was conscious loving and conscious living. Really
Oh,
wanted to
what a great
expose,
combo.
yeah,
I think
expose
that
people.
conscious living, it's one of those books that sort of slipped under. I think it's really one of Gay's best books and
I
most
too.
comprehensive. And so having that together with conscious loving, those are great bookends.
So then I was like, well, we should ask an author to come and talk to us about,
Right.
let's go to the
Yeah.
source.
Yeah.
So
So,
thank you for
Gay
being
was
willing.
getting ready to go to the gym this morning, and he said, "Well, what are you going to be doing this morning?" And I said, I don't know. Well, I like contexts of discovery, so that's just fine with me.
Good. Well, I want to do a little introduction. Now, yesterday was my first encounter with ChatGPT. So then I thought, oh, let's see what they would say. And
Oh
now
yeah,
I could
what
read
would
through
they
the whole
say?
thing.
Oh, because yeah, I have not done that yet.
Well, it's really fun. So I said, please write me a bio, which, of you, which they did, and whoever, right? It happened in
Right
about
over
five,
the
5 seconds. I'm actually going to put the whole thing into the chat because it's really fun to see. Um, but oh, but it's going to get mad at me. It's going to say it's too long. So I'll do that a little bit later.
Okay.
But it's really fun, and I'll send it to you. But basically it gave me a one really comprehensive paragraph, and then I said, well, could you make it more personable? So I'm going to just read a little bit of this because it's really
Oh,
fun. Hey,
okay.
Kathleen Hendricks, PhD, a beacon of wisdom and warmth in the picturesque town of Ojai, California. With a passion for conscious living and a deep understanding of the human experience, Dr. Hendricks has become a beloved psychologist, author, and trailblazer in the world of personal development. Isn't this great? This all just came out of.
It sounds very, it's very squishy,
Yes, it's well, because I was asking to be more personable.
right?
It was a little more straight laced.
Right.
Anyway, I'll put that in later and I'll send it to you. It's fun. But
Oh,
then I
that's
thought, what
fun.
would be how I would want to introduce you? And even sitting here, I mean, I am crying a little bit, but I'm
Mm.
trying to talk, and it's hard to talk and cry. But to remember my own encounters early on, finding conscious loving changed everything. Conscious loving on the bookshelf of Boulder Bookstore and pulling it down and starting to read it and apply it. And that was in 1993 or 4. Started using it with clients, and then I thought I must find these people. And so I that was pre-internet and all that stuff, and so I did. And
Yeah.
my first training with you was in conscious relationship transformation in 1995 in
1995.
Wilson.
Okay. Gosh. Well, yeah, a whole 30 years ago. That's
Oh,
just
Yeah.
To me, the 90s just seemed like just a little while ago, but I think that's just part of my of my age that I go, oh, that was just in the 90s. And I went, wait a minute, people who have been born since then and graduated from college and they have kids and they're so.
Exactly, and beyond. The thing that I most, want to carry forward, and I think people will not be surprised, they probably heard me say it many times. I think, you've been the best teacher I've ever had in my life, that if
Mm,
anybody that has any chance to, spend time with you is blessed, that you carry this, energy of possibility and love and huge, huge spaciousness that, I think just being in your presence, people shift and transform.
mm.
So, I'm so happy to be able to introduce you to people that don't know you yet and
Thank you.
open the channel here.
Well, one of the reasons that I'm here is because you and Kathy have such a welcoming invitation to collaborate. The sense of what can we do together? Like you come onto the playground fully, both of you, but also have such a generosity of opening to new ideas, particularly opening to learning, which we know now the growth mindset is the indicator of success in life. But there's a nuance that you bring to this, Julie, of not just this direction, but this direction, the way that you're able to go deep with people very quickly and invite them to go into spaces that would not be available without the collaboration, without that we space that you generate. And so anytime I get a chance to collaborate with you is also a gift for me. We've had so much fun together. We should
So
have a
much
clip
fun.
of all the wild stuff that we've done together. Some of the, I do have a picture of one training where Kathy and I exchanged outfits. So I came as Kathy and she came as me, and it was so fun because we were exactly the same size, and from the back you couldn't really tell who was who, and it was very fun. We just went through the whole day. I had her cap on and a sweater wrapped around me. It was that's
Katie
just one
Hendricks
little example.
wearing Eddie Bauer, yeah. And Kathy wearing who knows what designer, amazing, they
It
flowy.
was some flowy thing, which she put it on and she kind of went, oh, look at all.
Yep. Yes, many, many times, much, much fun. What I imagine about this time together would be that I could get the ball rolling a little bit with
Sure.
asking you some questions about conscious loving specifically, but that people would, you would put your questions for Katie in the chat so that we're really asking what you most want to know about. And I think specific to conscious loving, maybe, but I know we're not going to stay there. I did find my original copy, which I'm not sure which dog enjoyed it also.
But it's been blessed by one of your dogs.
At least one, at least one along the way. So yeah, so if people would put questions in the chat as we go, then we can be sure to get to those. And then of course you can raise your hand, or as Grant, will you do or Jen, will you do the flashy thing that you do with Zoom just because you can?
Oh.
I don't know if you've seen that. It seems I haven't seen it quite in the US. Well, somebody made that happen. So
Oh,
you can
that's
also
very
just
cool.
raise your hand and then we can.
Okay.
You don't have to create fireworks if you don't want.
Okay.
So Kate, conscious loving. Can you talk to us about the context of that, and then what you? It's been a while, so as you kind of go back, or even in your own body, of what that's been about for you. What were you bringing onto the planet at that point?
Well, my sense is when Gay and I got together, we immediately decided that we wanted to create a real, well, first of all, there were no models for good relationship. I mean, like zero. Because Gay and I got together in January of 1980. So that's 45 years ago. And not only were there no books, but there were no models. We both knew one couple that had this wonderful relationship, and then they got divorced. And so that was, that was like, oh, what if, and so when we got together and I went out to, I lived in Menlo Park in Northern California at the time, and I gave my graduate school where I was both teaching and also getting my doctorate. And uh, when I went out to Colorado, we basically we sat in a little cafe called Poor Richard's. And I remember sitting in the window of it, and we were talking about, well, what are we up to? What are we doing? What is this about? And what we came up with was that we wanted to generate a relationship that ran primarily on positive energy. And we also wanted to generate a relationship where we could share all aspects of our lives, and that we didn't have like work and then home, or your relationship with other people and then your relationship with me. We wanted to have all aspects of our life to be transparent, open, and unified. And so our first intention was really to be able to have all of the aspects of our lives be in support of our intention to generate a relationship, or relationships that we now, I guess, would call the we space, that would generate this third thing, that for both of us showing up fully, that rather than retreating. Because what I notice, and I still notice in relationships, is that most people lead with their mask. I think it was Chris Rock who said, when you meet somebody, you're not meeting them, you're meeting their representative. And they're and so that's all of what the culture teaches you, like this is a good way to, to get a partner, and you have to arrange yourself this way. And we just dispensed with all of that. That we wanted to have a relationship where all aspects fed the aliveness and the creativity. And right away we based our exploration on the three principles that we still use all the time, which is appreciation, responsibility, and authenticity. And we started out by just being relentlessly real, just opening up and doing sometimes what I call blurting, and being unedited with each other. But also, I think a really important aspect of our relationship early on was that we understood that feedback was really the engine for continuing to grow. And we began to discern the difference between feedback and criticism. And that went on for a couple of years. I'll say more about that in a moment. But the if we let ourselves be real, then everything else would follow. So I've always felt that authenticity is the gateway. So to any new space, or any opening of a relationship between you and someone else, is your decision to be real, to be transparent, will set up a relationship where both of you can be who you are and can continue expanding into who you are. And then the responsibility, I keep coming back to that because I think responsibility is the central human problem. People do not understand responsibility and mistake it for blame or burden, but also entitlement. I think people, instead of taking responsibility, people go for, well, I shouldn't have to do this. I should be able to, I should know what's going on for you. You should think of me first. All of our entitlement, I'm entitled to your time and to your affection, and I don't have to do anything to get that. I'm just entitled to it. So responsibility, I think, I continue to think, is our ability to respond. And I appreciate all the work that you've done, Julie, on the difference between the reactive brain and the creative brain, and that all fits so, all of the research fits so nicely with what we did. So what I found is that research now supports all of the things that we've put out into the world, both in conscious loving, but also in At the Speed of Life, which is our body-centered training book. And so we decided that we were going to be a living laboratory. I think that's probably if you were going to just put it in a nutshell, we've used our relationship as a living laboratory. So with regard to feedback, we went radical. Now, just to see, this is 1980s, where, just like a look at some of the fashions from the 1980s and the music and what was going on in the 1980s. So this was completely radical. So one of the things that we decided was, with feedback, anytime, anywhere, anyhow. So rather than, I don't like the way you said that to me, or you could have picked a better time. In fact, my classic story of this is just, I think, several months after, or maybe this was later on, but I can't remember exactly when it was. It must have been after Conscious Loving came out, because we were going out to give a lecture on a Sunday. And I had on this beautiful new, I love clothes. This is another aspect of I love the to play with fashion and to play with different aspects of my personality and the way I show up. Because so people would always say, what's she going to wear now? What's she wearing this time? So I had on this beautiful lilac dress. And I had asked Day earlier, would you let me know if anything that I'm wearing makes me look fat? So on this particular morning, we're all set to go out the door, and Gay said, that dress makes you look fat. And I went into that. You could have picked a better time, or just going out the door. And it so happened that we were having close friends visit that weekend, and she was tall, like, about a good 2 or 3 or 4 inches taller than me. And this was kind of a column, lilac, beautiful dress. And so I said, I think this would look great on you. And so I gave it to her. I put on another dress, and out we went through the door. And but what people don't get, they get the happy ending, but they don't get what it takes when someone says, that dress makes you look fat. Like, am I more? And then I remembered, I asked him to give me that feedback. I asked him, which generally people don't remember. So actually making good on our commitments. And that's part of where we came up with the idea of recommitting, that committing gets you into the game. And all of the commitments in conscious loving are all things that you could actually do. There's no woo-woo in there. They're actionable. So we put a focus on process rather than on, ideas that are disembodied. And one of the most important things that we discovered that we still use is recommitting. So when people mess up, usually there'll be a beat myself up, or beat yourself, or beat the other person up, and then sort of go back into your corner and kind of reform the original pattern. But what we decided to do was to let feedback continue to be changing and opening us, so that I had the experience of my structure sort of crumbling and then rebuilding and crumbling and rebuilding, really hundreds of times. And through the practice of recommitting, my whole nervous system got upgraded to be able to be available not only for feedback, but for the unexpected, and for the flow of energy and connection that happens when I'm transparent, when I'm taking responsibility for my own, for what I've contributed to the situation. So I think early on too, it was in the 80s, we decided to end blame and criticism, because both of us had grown up in very critical families. And I actually didn't even recognize for many years that I was sort of pickled in criticism. And there was another classic story, is that I walked in one day. This is when we still lived in Colorado Springs. And I walked in, I just had my hair cut. and about my hair. It's very important, subject. So I just walked in and Gay said, you got your hair cut. And I went, oh, what's wrong? Just reflexively, I went, oh, what's wrong? And then it was a real turning point because I realized I was listening for criticism. So the argument is often, you're criticizing me. No, you're criticizing me. If you'd stop criticizing me, I'd stop criticizing you. But the whole aspect of what we used to call it is I'm a criticism waiting to happen, or I'm a conflict waiting to happen. And the idea that I could shift my ability to see Gay as my ally, that was the commit that made the most difference for me. Was I commit to seeing you as my ally because I can do that. I can take responsibility for that, rather than you have to change your behavior and then I'll change my idea about you. And so and that was quite radical. So we spent the 80s doing all of this radical opening up to what'll happen if we do this, and what happens if we add breath and movement. And particularly in a relationship, I find now that movement is such a key to seeing what's going on. If you just have people come in and talk about what's going on, you will not find out what the patterns are. But the moment that you have them move, particularly if you have them play with getting closer and getting separate, because that, I think, is that's the relationship dance for all of us, whether it's a romantic or a business relationship, is getting close. What draws me to unity and what draws me toward individuation? And that balance in a healthy relationship, there's always the urge to merge, but also the urge to individuate. And both of those are so important for a dynamic, growing relationship. And so we just kept experimenting, and we started working with people. The first summer that we got together, I moved out to Colorado Springs, and our first assignment, we worked with a group of people from the Army because Colorado Springs is surrounded by the military, which gradually became more and more of a problem. And in 95 we had to move out because it was just so we couldn't handle anywhere. Plus, focus on the family moved in, so that was basically it for us. So the whole idea of being able to commit, to recommit, to play your way into a different relationship, but dropping out of just talking about it. So we right away started using, because I've been a registered dance movement therapist for 50 years, and Gay is the world's expert in breath work. And so that was one of the dynamics that we brought to the relationship work that made just a huge difference. And if you want to read more about that, that's in At the Speed of Life, particularly the chapter on flags. I think flags, I would say our biggest contributions to the field are the upper limit problem, microscopic truth, and the sense that you can keep recreating yourself over and over again if you recommit. So also from the very beginning, we've given our work away. So we want everybody to be able to use it and to be able to combine their genius and their discoveries with what we've discovered. And so that has created all kinds of wonderful rippling throughout the world, because people use it in corporations and and for therapy and in all kinds of different settings. So if you just push another button, I'll can babble for another 10 minutes. So
thank you. And I think that's a fun game to play. What are your biggest contributions to the field? Because I can think easily of, well, the next one that comes to my mind is this whole idea of unconscious commitment, and which is pretty much what you were just saying. But I think that is a standalone. I have not seen that anywhere else. And it's such, it's profound in its ability to support transformation. When people can see that the results they're creating are their current commitment, and then get in sync with that. Now we get to FACT, of course, but face into that
Yeah.
and then actually kind of get under it to what was that doing for them, and now what do they really want to commit to? I mean, that's just stunning, really, and its impact.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I mean, that's so much of what I do now. I don't really even think of it as
Oh,
that,
yeah.
you know? So I appreciate that feedback. The sense of, it allowed us to really move through the bullshit so quickly. You know, those people would be, you know, they'd be saying one thing, you know, and presenting themselves, but all of this, what they were actually doing and doing with each other would give us the unconscious commitment. You know, the
Mm.
things that we thought, oh, I didn't really mean that. I didn't intend that. And we go, oh, well, yes, you did, because that's what happened. That's what you know, that. So the actual facing into reality, and facing into reality with curiosity. I'd say the other thing we've focused on quite a lot over the years is the difference between judgment and curiosity. You know, our left brain judgment, and our right brain opening to wonder and curiosity and possibility. That criticism is you know, kills any, I'd say criticism kills relationships faster than anything else. You know, criticism and the kind of fear driven behaviors that all of us have. So when people are confronted with an unconscious commitment, people take that as there's something fundamentally wrong with me. And so sorting that out of, this is something that you learned, this is a learned pattern, and who did you learn it from? And also tying it into that we all humans require attention. And you know, it's taken a really long time to begin to get that into the collective, because the myth is that it's okay to have attention when you're a kid, but by the time you're grown up, you should know, you should have it all handled. You know, you should be like Simon and Garfunkel's I am a rock, you know, I'm an island. And you no longer really need attention because you can do it yourself. And it's really, the fact is that humans require attention lifelong, not just to survive, but to thrive. And so the attention, I say that attention is the currency of relationship. And how I've developed various games that people can really find out, how do we give and receive attention? And so that ties back into what you learn to do in order to get some kind of attention, because without attention, humans shrivel up. They may not die outright, but their, you know, their ability to enjoy and to create and to connect gets really, you know, shriveled up. And so having people
Mhm.
really open up to having a pattern picked out is an opportunity to learn to love yourself and to learn to love that aspect of you, which you actually inherited. It's not primal to you. It's not, you weren't born with that, you learned that. And so that kind of sorting is part of the nuance of working with partners, particularly, or really anybody who's concerned about their relationship, working with their relationship with others, is letting the unconscious commitment be a gateway to discovery rather than a demerit, you know, or a black mark that means that you really are fundamentally messed up. And so back at the root of that is, you know, Gay's first book when we got together, he wrote it on, I remember we had a board over a couple of sawhorses in a friend's backyard where we were staying, and he wrote with big pens on legal pads, "Learning to Love Yourself."
Oh,
So the first summer that we were together, you know, in 1980, and I think it was published in, you know, somewhere in the early 80s, and is still, you know, I keep coming back to, what about this needs to be loved? And, you know, that is also helps so much to sort out, you know, I have to muscle through this. I have to stop doing this. I have to, you know, control myself because I'm fundamentally bad.
mm,
And that one comes up for so many people, that it's really, I think, a part of the discovery. But once you start going, oh gosh, another thing that oh, what happened there? Or I just noticed a different tone of voice. Where did that come from? And you start getting curious about the patterns that are showing up and how you might use your own loving yourself um, and creating something different rather than the same old pattern over and over again. Making new choices and generating new creativity makes it possible to have a relationship keep deepening over the years and keep being a field of discovery. Rather, a lot of one of the mythologies about a relationship is, well, have your fun now, because once you get committed or once you get married, it's all over, because then you have to compromise and you have to put up with, and you can't really have what you want because you're in a relationship, for God's sake. So, and all of that mythology, I think, is still, we've made some inroads, but it's still pretty active, and it's something that you're going to run into. That, and also one that just popped in my head that I just have to add in here is family. So I'm an advocate for a post-family world. I think that family has created more destruction than probably any single concept, like, and particularly with regard to responsibility. So if you look at any drama, like a movie or one of the dramas on television, somebody will screw up massively, and then someone else will say, well, God, what are you going to do about it? And they say, well, what can I do? He's family. He's family. So the excuse that we make for people to not take responsibility for themselves and for, to correct some, egregious intrusion on somebody else's aliveness, we don't do that. And I also think it leads to tribes, and it leads to us versus them, which we're really smack in the middle of on a global level right now. So seeing other people as your ally, seeing other people as making contributions to you and receiving feedback from others, and letting your sense of yourself keep, like, what is my essence? I'd say the heart of our work is really about revealing essence, and that each of us, it comes in our essence, but sometimes very early on, but eventually your essence being becomes inconvenient for your caretakers, and they start not giving you the same kind of attention, and that's where we start developing roles, what we call personas. And we put our personas out in front of us to see how people are going to react, and then maybe open that mask to let them in more deeply. So a lot of our work is about, what is it that's genuine to you? What's authentic to you? And how can you author yourself on an ongoing basis? So I've recreated myself many, many, many times over this 45 years. We were just talking the other day about, the various, we've had so many different lives and things that we've been engaged in over all of these years. But at the heart of it is that human beings are here to celebrate and support each other and consider each other as evolving works of art rather than your own little improvement project. That's one of the things that we always, when we're doing a workshop, we have, couples especially sit across from each other and go, now, just tune in to all of the different ways that you see your partner as your own little improvement project. And if you could just, get that little thing polished up, or you could get them to stop doing that, and, then everything would be, so we see each other, as like a house project, rather than as really a unique work of art, and that your job is to appreciate and support the continuing evolving of both yourself and also of your partner.
Also extraordinary and a huge contribution to our consciousness. I know people have put some questions in there, but
Good.
I'm gonna ask a question.
Okay.
Because I want to get to this. So with conscious loving, withhold, withdraw, project. And I think along the way I've heard you or Gay say that's what that book was. So would you comment about that? Because
Yeah, it's
back
so
to that over
interesting
it is
because that's on, there's this little like two
one little
lines
line.
on
I can
one
see it.
page, it's like page 54, so withhold, withdraw, project.
Yeah.
And I've come back to that again and again over the years because it's so reliable. So it's the act of withholding, it's not the content. So that's what people get into, like, particularly in therapy, they get into the content. Like, you said, no, I didn't. You said, no, well, when you said that, then, and that never changes anything. It's the act of withholding, not the content. So when I withhold, I have to use measurable physical energy to do that. Humans are meant to, something comes through, you have an impulse, and we're meant to express that. And if you don't, you have to do something physically to stop yourself from expressing that. And that has you withdraw. So, and most people are not aware of that. So you withhold, and then that makes you withdraw. And then from your withdrawal, it starts looking like it's the other person. So when you're not expressing, it looks like it's the other person that's the problem. And that's where the projection comes from. And so what we offer to people, if you find yourself thinking it's the other person's fault, look for what you have withheld. It's a very powerful, very simple, very effective little recipe. So then when you're projecting, it's almost never about the thing you think it's about. In fact, we say you're never upset for the reason you think. And so this is a way for you to really get to, okay, oh, I walked out into the kitchen and I saw the coffee grounds there again and I got irritated, but I know you're trying. I know that you've been trying, so I'm just not going to say anything about it. And then there you go. You've withheld, then you've withdrawn, and the other person then becomes, I think the thing that happens there is a kind of disdain. There is a loss of respect in withhold, withdraw, project, that has you see the other person is not your equal anymore. And then that can get all entangled and buried in the relationship. And when you're trying to resolve or make a difference, you don't realize that you've kind of fired the person as your equal. And so what happened, when did that thing happen that you withheld? And then then I very often go, oh, I did kind of see you as less than, there as a kind of disdain. And that will also show up a lot in people's, particularly in the eye rolls and the kind of, the shrugs and the things that people do when they're withholding, because you can't withhold. So your body then starts communicating for you. And that's where it's a great benefit to know how to spot flags, because that will allow you to guide people to find their unconscious commitment the moment that they have withheld. And then it can really become about discovery, rather than I'm trying to achieve something. I'm a bad person, but if I work really hard, maybe someday I'll be a good person. And it's a completely different model, that we really think that all people are lovable, and that we get trained not to love ourselves because of the inherited patterns from sometimes generations back. My experiences with my own discovery, I can see the patterns that I learned from my mother, my grandmother, and how many generations back they go, so that any opening that I make actually supports freedom going forward and backward in time. And I can see that and experience that. And it lets me know that it's never too late, to kind of dismantle the edifice that you have around you, in favor of being here in the world in real time.
One of my favorite magic times in using this work, your work, and then what I've done with it, but your work is to follow the withhold that people know. Oh, it was 10 years ago. It was 3 years ago. It was that time that we're standing in the park. And I mean, people's bodies, if we follow the sensation, they can get themselves right to the moment of the withhold. I mean, how does that even happen? I mean, it's
I know it's so magical. And so if a person has an experience of that, it opens up a whole world that I have this treasure inside here. When I open up the treasure box, there are all kinds of things to discover,
Mhm.
and not just the withholds, but the potentials that I've hidden because, I couldn't possibly do that, or you wouldn't like it if I, express myself in this way, where that we hold ourselves back because we think we have to be less than ourselves in order to be approved of. But I love the whole idea of following. And we're also collaborating. It's not like I'm doing something to you. So, one of the reasons that I don't do therapy anymore, I stopped doing therapy in 1993, because I noticed that the model itself, we've made some changes in it now. Thank you, Julie. But the model is inherently unequal. It's all, most therapy takes place on the drama triangle, and the client is the official victim. And so you have these two choices: either the villain, yeah, I told you to do this last week and you didn't, or the hero, oh, I know that was really hard for you, let's just start again. And we could, and that's just built in. And our model is really about collaboration and sharing space together. And so what I'm bringing is my presence and what I'm noticing and freely sharing with you, rather than, it's not about me at all. Of course, it's about me. If I'm in relationship with you, I get to have my experience, as the coach or the therapist, and you have your experience, and I'm sharing what I see, and you're in charge of your own choices. So, that whole, it's a very different model of transformation.
So to acknowledge and really be with the enormity of what you just said, because you're really saying, oh, there's a way to be a professional in the world, in this world of transformation, that supports us all to be equals. And over time, it really is the shift out of hierarchy and patriarchy. Say, no,
Yes.
you don't have to do it that way. Here's a whole other way that where everybody can shine and feel great and create from who they really are. I mean, talk about radical.
Oh, thank you. And also, I want to just use this opportunity to share with your group an app that I created a few years ago that's called Presence Connect Play. I'm going to just hold
Hmm.
this up. And it's a free app. And so the model that I've created to replace the triangle is Presence Connect Play. That you bring yourself here, you connect, and then you collaborate, you play. And I also think that play has such a bad reputation, where you think, oh, you're just playing, you're not doing anything serious. And I go, yeah, that's right, we're playing, we're not doing anything serious, because play is so much more effective than work. And so the app has little has things for you to do that allow you to experience presence from lots of different entry points, and then connection from lots of things that you can actually do in this moment that allow you to connect. And the other thing that we've just done is created it's sort of a glossary, and here's some more information about this, because some of the things, like here's connect, yes, and add appreciation. So people might go, what the hell does that mean? And so we have a website that explains what yes and, like, that's about receiving feedback. So yes is, so someone, Gay will say to me, because we like to play, he likes to play because he considers me perfect. So he likes to play with perceived flaws. And I'll say, you're that was really a slobby thing. And I go, oh, yes, I just learned how to do that. And so I'll take it in and just start playing with it. So rather than, you have to be perfect in what you're saying and, and tiptoe around each other. So Presence Connect Play, I just wanted you to know about it because that's the model that I want to suggest to people. And that's what I do when I go around in the world now, whether it's at the grocery store or whether it's in a conference in Europe. I presence and then I see what allows me to connect with either the whole or the other person. And then there's always some play that wants to happen that we both get to. And the play doesn't have to be haha. The play is where we're basically tossing. My sense is that play is basically tossing and then seeing how things land and how that wants to develop. And we co-create together. It may be a feeling emerging or an old memory, and then making a different choice about that. So, might have been really shamed earlier in life. And then we can play with that by, for example, exaggerating the shame move and then feeling into that, as you were talking about earlier, Julie, about following that down in your body. And then what was the impulse that got squashed? And letting that impulse come through the, roaring or crying or declaring yourself here or strutting around, or it's almost always a muchness move. You've squashed your muchness. And then when you find that impulse, your authentic impulse, then you start charging yourself with your own aliveness in the world.
I'm realizing how much you've changed my relationship with airports. Because I think I've heard you talking about playing with the people, taking your baggage right. So I have a whole different experience of playing through an airport, and that people are willing, are ready to play and actually
I
available
find
for
that,
playing so much.
yeah, because we have this sense of, don't bother people because,
They're doing their job.
people are in their own little silos and it's very serious but I find that always if I'm doing something we call looking for the opening. And so I'm not looking for what's wrong. So the other thing I've noticed, I don't know if you all have noticed this, is that we've moved as cultures, particularly in the West here, I don't know about in the East, but we've moved much more toward a what's wrong orientation. So like we'll make a post on our Hearts in Harmony, and people and I never know which post it's going to be because but they'll go after, like we had 180 comments on some post and it was all about what's wrong and didn't you consider people who've been abused, and it was all, and I thought, well, this is actually about it's very much you're wanting to make people wrong rather than looking for what's the opening where we can connect and really experience each other as allies and here on the planet. And so that's what I'm intensely focused on right now. And I really found that even grumpy pusses, if you can find some, there's some play that can happen. And often it's, I'll just take something that somebody's doing and I'll just start, just do a little, I'll mirror it and just do a little something. And then I notice what they do. And, then there may be just a little exchange. It might be in as little as 30 seconds or a minute, but it's real. And I know that I've, like I'm sort of the Johnny Appleseed of appreciation. And so taking that through the world, I feel very happy that the other thing was just occurring to me is that living in this way, I feel safe everywhere I am because I am noticing what's going on around me and inside me. I'm willing to be real. I'm willing to tell the truth. And what that opens up is a kind of an extra sense of being able to feel into what's going on in the environment, because I'm not wrapped up in my own fear or my own self-judgment. So I have my radar out, and I've, both on the road, I'm just thinking about how many times I've, at least 4 or 5 times I've avoided an accident because of that kind of awareness. So it's not just I'm able to interact with other people, but I'm able to interact with the world fully and be responsible for not just being safe, but for opening new opportunities for connecting and co-creating.
Why don't we ask some of the questions that are in
Okay.
Sarah, I mean, people could just ask them, or I could read them. So Sarah, do you want to ask your question?
Hi, Katie.
Hi.
I wanted to ask, you and Gay are like my relationship. I think both Sarah and I is sort of relationship heroes, looking out in the world and not having tons of models. We
It's
sort of picked
true.
you guys.
There aren't very many models. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've latched on to you personally. Um, and I really was curious where how things are. It might be, I don't know if it's too personal or not, but just
Never.
kind of wondering what disagreement looks like with you and Gay now, after many years of sort of practicing together, and what's your mode for kind of working through stuff if things are coming up still, or have you kind of evolved out of that, or just curious?
Well, I mean, first of all, 45 years is a lot of time to play with stuff. So we don't have disagreements. I think the main thing, though, is that we've eliminated blame and criticism. I mean, we have truly eliminated blame and criticism. And in your work with people, in your exploration, that I would put as a very high goal early on. So because blame and criticism are so erosive, they're like acid, and they will erode, any conscious intentions that you have. And so making a commitment and recommitting to ending blame and criticism is incredibly valuable, because then it allows you to make space for what you both want. So underneath, disagreements is something that both people want. You want something and your partner wants something, and they may not be exactly in sync with each other. Timing or, intensity, or, you want to do something that's more in individuation and your partner wants to do something that's more merging. That's almost always what's at the base of it, is some sort of asymmetry in the relationship dance. And if you've eliminated blame and criticism, one of the things we did was make a commitment to it. But when we would find it coming up, because it took us about 2 years to actually have that happen. My cat does that too. Goes right in front of the camera, goes, "Here I am. I'm here too." When you eliminate blame and criticism, it doesn't mean it's going to stop right away, because those patterns, I think, are they're generated by fear. And I think they come out of fight, primarily out of fight. Criticism is a kind of a move. And when I found myself doing that, we decided we would shift right in that moment to appreciation. And we would do the Gottman move of 5 appreciations for every criticism. And that applied to us personally as well, because I tended to internalize criticism. And so I would criticize myself rather than criticizing Gay, like, "Oh, there I go again. I'm never going to learn this. Here I'm concealing again," etc. So appreciating allowed us, first of all, to then generate a big menu of appreciations. And the flowering that comes from appreciating is really palpable. You can feel it right away in your body. And so then we would recommit. So one of the things I did before I really learned how to do that is that I would find myself blaming and criticizing, and then I would go away and beat myself up, and have my, and I'd cry and be, and then I would come back and it would be like starting over again. And like, well, I'll do better next time. But the frame was, there's something fundamentally wrong with me. And so when I learned that beating myself up is totally optional, it doesn't make anything better ever. And when I would simply recommit to ending blame and criticism and would share that, then that built up my committing muscle, but also my the thing that was just popped into my head was the power of generous listening. So so we really expanded our ability to hear, particularly what the other one wanted. That I could hear what Gay wanted before he could hear what he wanted, because I'm loving him and listening for what's going on underneath here and what does he really want. And so that's one thing we can provide for each other, for our friends and partners, is to be listening to what the other person really wants. And even if you don't get an instant answer to that, you can get a sense of, no, it sounds like it's something about, expressing yourself more in the world. What might that be about? And then you can start supporting each other in your evolution rather than this recycling. It just got so boring, the whole recycling of the same problem over and over again. So what happens now mostly is celebrating each other's creativity, supporting each other's creativity, and this third thing, the space between us has become quite magical. And so a lot of what we do now is someone will ask us to show up, like to do an interview or be in a summit, and we always get the feedback after, like, it wasn't so much what you said, it was just something between you. I don't know what that is, but I want that, or how can I have more of that? And it's that context, a felt context, that I think each of us can create of exploration, of appreciation of each other. But also when there's something that comes up, like in this last year has been quite challenging. So I called 2023 the year of the leg, because in March, Gay had a very bad fall in the backyard and shattered his femur, his right femur. I mean, just broken in 5 different places. He has plates and pins and rods, and and so he was, so I've been caregiving, and very intensively caregiving for months. And so what came up, there was a time where I went in, and Gay would come out of, he would be, like asleep, and he would come out of and have like 5 or 6 different things he wanted me to do, and would just sort of boom, 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 those. And I realized there was something that was happening for me where I got, what I now understand is flooded. I just kind of got just feeling overwhelmed. And so I followed that, and it took me to an experience, one of the most traumatic experiences I had as a kid, when I was 8 and my mother was pregnant and was supposed to be in bed rest. So I'm 8. And so I have 2 brothers. One's older, 3 years older, 11. So she's asking me to do things around the house. So you can begin to get the connection between Gay asking me and my mother's. And so she asked me to move the clothes from the washing machine into the dryer, and which I'd never done before. I didn't know how to do it. And so I'm madly trying to, and somehow I've turned the washer on again rather than turning it on. And so I'm pulling things out and trying to put them into the dryer. And it's this very traumatic. And so my mother has a miscarriage. And so from then on, the implication was that it was my fault. So all of that had gotten buried in me, but it also, was a driver of some of my more unconscious behavior. And so it, I was 74 last year. I'm 75 now. So, and so at any time of life, those old things that are, buried in there can come up. So it gave me an opportunity to clear that one up. And so I could then say to Gay, yeah, I hear you. And just give me a second. I'm right in the middle of doing something, rather than having that where I couldn't respond to him. So the so it doesn't mean that upsets don't occur, or discoveries stop, but there's a much more loving and friendly way to be with each other. And what I experienced with Gay is him letting me in, because his big trauma was that he's not even supposed to be here. He was his mother got pregnant with him. His father died while his mother was pregnant with him. So he never knew his father, and his mother didn't know she was pregnant. So she's grieving, she's smoking nonstop, and she's not eating. And so when she got pregnant, she weighed 120 pounds. When Gay was born, she weighed 90 pounds.
Okay.
Yeah. So he was born into this. I'm an inconvenience. That was the big trauma for him. So over and over again, I got to support him in receiving. And we would just unpack that. Every time it came up, I would, open up to just letting him experience what he was experiencing. And but the outcome of that is being so much more deeply in and through each other. Now it's kind of, the energetic is kind of hard to describe, but I feel I can reach the whole cosmos through him now. And him letting me in, I just feel so honored that I get to love him deeply, and he can receive that. And so that's been part of the gift, but it's also been, I mean, I have such appreciation for all of the caregivers. And when my chiropractor the other day was saying, caregiving is the most stressful thing. It's the thing on the charts that's the most stressful. And so there are millions of people who are caregiving now, and how are they resourcing themselves and caring for themselves? It's really just kind of amazing. But for us to be able to navigate those stressors, I felt really proud of us that we were able to do that. Now, and Gay is still recovering, because he broke his leg twice. So, several months in, then he broke his hip on the same leg. And so, I mean, it was, it's been a year. So now he just got back from the gym. So he's still using a walker and training with a cane. And, but we're, on this journey, and have been just experiencing such incredible sweetness, even in the midst of things that, might seem, extremely challenging and have been challenging, but we're not wasting any of our energy, in disagreements or conflicts or criticism.
That's beautiful.
Mhm.
So
Very
having your partner be your friend, as well as, lover and companion. I think being able to go deep. I also think being able to go deep is something that our culture desperately needs. We have a kind of horizontal culture. If you just look, we have a culture of the like buttons, the dislike. So that's all very surface, and there's no nourishment in that. And, my sense is that through the practices that we've created, and that Julie is expanding on, people get the nourishment of deep connection, not just superficial, which tends, I think, to lead to addictions and adrenaline,
Yeah.
because I know I can get something from if I create adrenaline, I know I can get something from that. But deep opening and vulnerability to each other, that's something that I think is so much more, deeply, it's not even just nourishing, it's renewing and regenerating for people. I've certainly experienced that.
Carrie, you had a couple questions. I wonder if you want to, which one?
Sure.
wanna
I
share?
know. I wrote a couple
Yes.
in the chat there, Katie. Thank you for doing this for us.
Oh, my pleasure.
And the two in the chat I'm gonna skip and go to the third one that I didn't even type in there. But so
I know.
sometimes for myself or when I'm helping others, I still struggle sometimes with how much to dig into the sensations, the emotions, that part versus hitting the button on connect and play and going to play, right? Like down there in the drama triangle and feeling the feelings. And how do you know when the time is to?
Oh, yeah, that's such a great question. Yeah, the how I know is going to be different from how you know, but I think that the map, what was coming to my mind is the flags. When you learn flags, what I recommend is that you follow the flags, because that will let you know whether somebody is open to exploring or whether you've hit not quite ready here. And then you can be looking at right there where things stopped. Did the breath stop? Did movement stop? Did expression stop? And you can open up to what's wanting to be expressed right here. Rather than having to know. See, the thing that's so great about flags is that you don't have to know. You just follow the flags, and then the client, or the partners or the group gets to be in charge, and you're with them. It's like going along beside them rather than trying to drag them or push them. One of the things I learned in taking out, because I now take out the bins, I take out the garbage bins. And one thing I've learned is that it's much easier to pull than to push. So it's like, yeah, way, wow, good noticing. But if we apply that, I think that a lot of times we're taught to push. Like to push people into, because we can see that there's like a feeling or there's something there. And if you could just get to that, it would make a difference, but we're pushing. But if it's actually not even, I'm just thinking of like having a wagon that I'm gently pulling the wagon, and the wagon is what the person wants. So their desire and their commitment is pulling them toward their future. And you're assisting with that, what energy is wanting to be expressed in that moment, simply by following what their bodies are doing. And that is also for me so interesting, because I never know. And so I'm noticing, and I'm checking in with myself. So I'm doing loop of awareness. How am I experiencing this? And I'll have an impulse or an image will come that I can share, like, oh, I just saw, an image of a kite taking off. And those things are always right on, and they're just kind of magical, and they come from the universe and they come through you, and it allows you to be part of the discovery rather than being, I'm in charge and I'm helping you to get to this thing that you couldn't get to, but without me. And then people get more of their own facility in, oh, I have all of this richness inside that I could tune into by noticing my own flags, my own impulses, where I stop myself, where there's a gesture like, oh, I just did, what was that? Like sometimes for me, I'll hear it in a tone of voice of myself. Oh, that was a little edgy. So, and then I can start following that. And so, we can be just in growth and discovery all the time. And not working hard. So one of the things I say is that if you're working harder than your client, something is wrong. So, because then that puts us back into the triangle, and it's sort of a little bit of a villain hero combo. And, rather than, so I've learned how to take a pause, take a breath, because one of my patterns early on was anticipating. So I'd be just, because if I could anticipate, I could get there before my dad would get mad, so I could finish people's sentences and I could finish gay sentences. So learning how to, and not get anxious about that, you know, like nothing's happening for, you know, 10
Mhm.
seconds or so, and just letting it evolve. And, you know, that's, so for me, it's kept me fascinated with this field for, you know, over 50 years now. Because just always things to discover and magical. And that, and when somebody connects to what's really going on and what they really want, or has a feeling that comes through, and then they remember, and then they can make a new choice about something that they retreated from, and they get more of, you know, more of themselves and more agency. Ah, that celebration, that's just worth everything.
Mhm. Oh, thank you.
I'm gonna do my best to put words to things that have been in the chat together. So I'm thinking about many conversations we've had in our living room about
Yes.
politics,
Politics
really
and
relishing.
and with dogs also.
With many dogs.
Have always been part
There's
of that
always dog
conversation.
politics and dog. But your my sense of you as this very committed feminist, very involved with politics over time,
Yes.
pretty clear ideas about the world and what's happening. How do you see this work, your work, as like about 100% responsibility, but interfacing with these systems, right? The systems of oppression, racism, sexism, etc. How do you put those things together?
Well, right now I've been doing a lot of work on fear. So I have a whole huge module on our foundation website on fear and how to transform fear. And it's actually not stopping fear, but it's liberating the energy that is under fear. So I'll come back to that in a second, and help remind me, Julie, if I start wandering off into the. But once, because I've discovered some new stuff about fear.
Oh.
Yeah, so very exciting. But it's my sense that fear plus contempt is what's going on right now in a lot of the collective. So when you put fear and contempt together, you get hate. And the sense that other people are the enemy. And so I've been working a lot with, what do I do with contempt, both contempt for myself and contempt for others? So the first thing is how I diminish myself in the presence of others. So back at the Kavanaugh hearing, Kavanaugh was interacting with both Amy Klobuchar and Dianne Feinstein. And he did his, you know, nasty little bullying, and both of them diminished themselves. And you can see it. You can, if you see those videos, they both did a fear retreat. And that was the signal for him. He just went for it, you know, and, you know, got very nasty. And, you know, and so my sense is, one thing that each of us can do is support our own full presence. Am I able to presence myself in the midst of, you know, contempt and hatred coming at me? And so I think that's what each of us can do individually. And I think collectively, calling out contempt is, I think, what all of us need to do this year, because it's so much the water we're swimming in that people don't hear it. So that is Trump's language, is the language of contempt. And he expresses it in everything that he does. And so all of his followers, you know, have, they combine contempt with fear. And there are two things that happen in fear. I mean, there are many things, but two destructive things that happen in fear. One of them is that you leave your problem-solving brain. Your problem-solving brain goes offline and you're in your reptilian brain. So you go Godzilla. And then the other is that when you're in fear, another person becomes the enemy. They're not like me. So for me, presence, connect, play is really about seeing, what do we have in common? where is there something that we're both sharing, where I can connect? But I also now will call out contempt when I hear it. And just a couple of weeks ago, sometime in the last couple of weeks, I heard a commentator talking about contempt on a national television show. So it's beginning to, make its way into the collective. So, being able to say, no, I don't agree. I don't see things that way, without losing my presence or devaluing the other person. And so it's a whole different language. And my other sense is that we don't realize how much we're steeped in fear now. It's been going on at least since 9/11, but intensively through the Trump years. And even if you don't, like Australians, you're affected by this also, because it's now a global phenomenon. And so I think for me, every day I'm unraveling more of fear, of the fear soup that I've been, and I think that most everybody is, and most people would experience it as stress, or I'm just feeling more anxiety and I'm edgy, but it's fear. You're just in this fear soup, and so everything looks threatening and bad. So what underneath? So the four expressions of fear. What I've found is that when I really befriend fight, what's under that is what I'm now calling forging. That I have this energy of like I have my oomph, that I can, I can be very strong, but I'm not angry. And so I think for women, the big thing is to discern anger from fear, from fight. And I think that the culture wants to keep us scared. Because if women opened up to really how furious they are, the world would change overnight. Because we would just, stop it. I think each of us are, when I see inequality and contempt, I will challenge it. And I've been doing that since I realized I've been doing it since I was in the 9th grade. That when I was in the 4th grade. I was 9 years old, and the teacher, and I was shy, which may be hard to understand, but I was very shy, and the teacher started disparaging one of the other kids. He was actually bullying one of the kids, and something brought me up out of my chair, and I said, "You can't talk to him that way." And I thought, who said that? And he stopped. So, it was one of my first, I have a passion for justice. Justice I've had all my life. And so anytime that I can speak up for having people be acknowledged as being equal, that comes from my having discerned my anger from fight. And so for those of you who work with women, I think that is really a fundamental distinction that's going to make a huge difference. So under flee, when you liberate the energy of the fear energy, befriend, flee, what opens up is what I'm calling readiness. Like a tennis player, or I say now a pickleball player, who is ready for the ball to come from any direction. So it allows you to be available for the unexpected and to be able to respond to life more in the moment, rather than, oh, that shouldn't be happening, and and sort of being behind the ball. So that kind of readiness is a gift of befriending flee. And then under freeze, I was wondering, what the heck is the gift of liberating freeze? And then I realized it's the ability to genuinely pause. Not to freeze, but to pause. So going out into space rather than being caught in time. And I'm going to need to end here very quickly because Gay's got a thing at 10:30. But the pause allows you to orient. So like what's going on, situational orientation that can come from being able to pause. And then what's under faint is your ability to actually engage in the world. So love scoops are the same as what babies do when they are able to then reach out. So that's the beginning of the connection with the world, is you're reaching out, reaching for what you want, reaching and bringing in food, reaching and pulling people in. So engagement is the gift of befriending the faint. And so as I've played with those, I've realized that I can go into situations now I would never have gone into, because I've befriended fear so much that I can explore and and also challenge. So I think part of what I never thought that I would be living in a time where both the Emperor's New Clothes and the Wizard of Oz have come to life. I never thought I would be living in the acting out of the Emperor's New Clothes. It's just stunning. So I think that we need to be calling out that the Emperor has no clothes.
I know you have to go, so I want to just take a moment to, I don't know how to express my such a deep appreciation, but to say, and maybe we can get you to come out to Boulder again sometime and play in
I would love to,
'cause-
and because I'm getting more bandwidth. So for a long time, last year I just didn't have any bandwidth because it was all going into
Sure.
caregiving. But I'm back.
Yay.
Well, thank you so much. And
Thank
Julie,
you for blessing us in all.
well, I just adore you, and I appreciate so much one of the things I most appreciate about you is the steadiness of your commitment. I can feel, and I know you all can feel, like there's this the engine's always going there. And the invitation to be yourself, to be together. And I just love how you are spreading that in the world. So thank you all for being on the Conscious Loving and Conscious Living ride, and look forward to connecting with you again in other forms.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
I'm off. Okay. Bye now.
Wow.
Here we are by ourselves, but
Ooh.
woo! So that was, I thought an hour and a half, that's so long. And like, that was a moment for me of, I don't know, time was not there for me. So I know our agreement is to end at 11:30 Mountain Time. So maybe we will. Let's just see if anybody wants to. You can certainly leave anytime you want, of course. Yay, Zoom. Don't even have to disrupt anything. But I wonder if anybody wants to talk about anything you just heard or something that came up.
I mean, I want to say that I had like this kind of, I almost was like semi-fainting myself. I was like so overwhelmed. I had to like keep doing some breathing. That was like a real big deal to be able to have to and ask that question. I mean, this is like, since the moment that I picked that book up, I really was like, God, if I could get ever to ask one question, it would really be that. And just so fun. I mean, I was like, pushing Sarah, I was like, this is really happening. So thank you so much. That was like the funnest thing in the world to get to do that. I'm so stoked. I can't even believe it.
I think Katie really would come to Boulder. I mean, we've talked about it, and I think just creating the space and
That was so fun.
that it would make sense. So
Mm.
one of those things, we still have clothes of hers in the basement where she stayed before. So
Thank you for putting me on. I couldn't connect to the Zoom for some reason.
well, it's all recorded, so you can.
Well, Shannon got me on, so thanks, Shannon.
Great, thanks, Shannon.
I'm just blown away by all this. And yesterday in VILC, our topic was love scoops. So I zoomed right in on that one and really felt it, and kind of exploring the subject of learning to love myself. And oh, by the way, I did buy a stuffed animal.
In Conscious Living, which I was reading last night, there's a whole thing about of course, Gay wrote the book about learning to love yourself. Highly recommend it. But it was a new context of, because then I'm part of life, because life is love. And so if I'm actually shifting my own experience, my own vibration to love myself, it was just a different way of thinking about, now I'm just part of the big field. So yeah, there's another reason.
I'm appreciating, like I keep hearing the word bold and brave. Like just this energy of they see this thing and they're digging in and they're doing, I mean, like the 80s. That really struck me. And I have a lot of appreciation for their willingness to go and do these things that were very different and radical. I kept hearing, she said radical a few times.
And the idea of sitting down right at the beginning of a relationship and saying, okay, so what do we want to do? Well, let's run this on positive energy. Like, so what a message to me, to all of us, like, we could do anything. And so what is it we want to do?
Yeah. Julie, I also want to appreciate you and what I've learned from you about power struggle and below the line. So I'm like, when I'm listening to other people talk about fear and these concepts, I have those ideas that I've learned from you in my mind. And they really land for me. So being able to kind of, when Katie was talking about in the court and the power over, it's like, I'm hearing that frame in my mind too. And I'm appreciating like being able to put that side by side things and wonder about like what lands and how do you bring this in. And so feeling grateful for what I've learned about that.
As she was talking about what the 3 things they've contributed to or the 4 things, like, let's just keep going here, because right, the accessibility of what she just was going through of, fight is foraging, like what? Like I have not heard that before. And so to right away now even apply that to the inner map. Okay, if I'm in fight, but I could really get into was it forage? Is that the word she used?
Yeah.
Yeah. Forge, F-O-R-G, not forage. Yeah. I can forge in and like use my energy in, like applying that directly. So going from the inner map to what can I do with this right now? Yeah, it's beautiful. Aren't we lucky? All right. But whatever we all did, and just include yourselves in that, we get to just like, hey, let's hang out with Katie for an hour and a half. Like, nice job. And to be able to live in this kind of work that really is so much about, I don't know what the world needs, but it's very contemporary, very here anyway. I think
Julie, what you just said about Forge, it reminds me sometimes of your invitation when someone's in collapse, and you've done this with me, like just to ask, can you access MAD? And just the difference that comes into the voice and the body and everything with it, that reminds me of Forge.
anything else anybody wants to?
Can you spell that? Are you saying forge or forage?
I said it wrong the first time.
Yeah.
F-O-R-G-E, forge, like forging.
Yeah.
Yes, like Carrie just did. Forge.
That was the gift of fight. I missed that one.
Yes, that's what's underneath fight is forge.
What about flight?
Flight. This is a good quick pop quiz.
Readiness.
Like, yeah, readiness, right? Being available for what's happening. Yeah.
I would love to, I guess we could look back at the video. That's a very cool list to have. I love the alternatives of things. It was
Yeah.
like, and then the triangle was another really cool one too. It was like Presence Connect play versus the triangle. It's like, that's awesome.
I'm
Mhm.
flashing on this one training I went to, and I will look for the materials. But they had, I don't know that Katie, I think, was mostly in it, maybe Gay, but really pulled those things apart. Like she talked about entitlement this time, but it was entitlement versus appreciation, I think. But anyways, each section was putting those two things together. I mean, I had never thought about entitlement and how entitled I had been in my relationship with Kath. Like, so anyway, just a note to me to bring that material forward, and you can look through and see what you take from it.
One of the things I'm really taking away, especially as we're talking about like the gifts inside of fear, is thinking about what energy gift. I'm thinking of Sarah's golden eggs that she brought in during the last training. Like, what gifts are underneath the collapse states or the below the line states? And this idea of like, oh, if we can unlock the energy. For some reason, that's clicking for me of like, okay, when we're below the line, how do we unlock it to actually access life force?
Right. Use the energy.
States. I'm feeling really
squished in.
Like I kind of wonder if there's like, could you do the same thing? And maybe this is what you're saying is like, is if you looked at shame or something, like what is the gift in shame? Like if you went to that place,
That sounds.
that's pretty wild.
I have thought through, for me, like what's the adaptive value of going into shame, but not what's the energy that we can really catalyze from within shame. Yeah. So, and adding this other level, great idea.
That was also something that had come up, was that appreciating the help me out, the I'm gonna forget. It's the unconscious to conscious when we have like the appreciation of the part. That was so huge to me. Like that was like this loving thing that came in. It was like totally transformational. It was like, what can you appreciate, as part of those steps that you go through. So I don't know. There's something about that seems really neat.
Well, probably we could wrap in a moment. I just wonder if anybody has anything else burning that you want to be sure you speak before we wrap today.
I loved it. I wrote, I couldn't write fast enough. I just took a whole pad. I couldn't soak it up enough.
There's so many, yeah, yeah. I really appreciate that about you, Jocelyn. Like it's right, take it in.
I know.
You know,
I want to look at this later.
Yeah, way to just study this, right? Really
Yeah.
study it, embody it, and just to say, like, that's what we're doing. The overtime embodiment of this, because right, it's like, oh, I could do a little workshop in this. It's like, or it's like, it transform my entire being and my experience of life. Let's do that over time. and my contributions back into the world to help that shift. Like, okay, that sounds good, like a good way to spend my life. Well, Grant and Jen, I don't know if you'll go back to bed or not. And Channel, I don't know. I think it might be a couple hours later. What time is it?
Yeah, it started at 6 for us. Yeah.
Thank you for coming here, even in the middle of the night, and everyone else also. Just, I adore having you here, and your presence is so precious to me. So yeah, so let's go presence, connect, and play. Oh, just to give one more little, I don't know what that is. Katie's podcast is really great. To a shout out about her podcast, which is way to go. This This was their title.
Be play love.
Be Play Love. Isn't that just the best? Be Play
Uh,
Love. Anyway, so I would recommend that if you want to spend more time with her, it's like, oh, she's right there in your ears. Some more.
Julie, can I also mention her live love scoops on Monday, 9 a.m. Pacific time? She does 20 minutes, and at the moment it's all about looping and yeah, but also she introduces one of her integrity cards. So, you know, the 4 pillars of integrity.
Right.
Each week at the moment, she's introducing one of those cards. Yeah, so they're Carrie holding them
Oh
up.
yeah, both of us.
Yeah,
Way to go.
yeah. And then afterwards, for anyone that wants to stay on, there's what they call big talk. And it goes on for 40 minutes, just with anyone who's interested. Katie retreats. But yeah, people are just talking about it. So
Oh, wonderful.
yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie.
Yeah, thank you for organizing,
Thank you.
Julie.
Sure.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
You.
All right. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.